Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going over the pistol that you see in my hands right here and that you guys saw throughout the intro. This is the Tisas Regent BR9 SS. Now the SS is one of the cool things about this pistol that's going to attract a lot of folks to it, in my opinion. It has a stainless steel slide, and obviously it is a high power clone. No getting around that, and it's very true clone in most regards. There's a couple parts that don't interchange, but for the most part, almost all will, so that is a good thing. Another thing that's nice about this is going to be the price point right up front. This one was sent out to us for the review by the folks over at Gun Prime, and over there right now, this pistol I think is going for like $539. So price point wise, it's an awesome value if you're looking to get into a high point or high power rather, and you don't want to spend a ton of money. If you're looking to get into high point, I got another video for you. But anyway, if you're looking to get into a high power and don't want to spend a ton of money, because the high powers, as of right now when I'm filming this video, are not currently in production by FN or Browning anymore. So the prices on those are just going up. And to have an option that seems really well made, which we'll get into here in just a second, at this price point is nice. So of course we're going to let the dogs take a look at it first, compare it to an actual FN high power real quick, and then get into the details of this particular pistol. Before getting into the details of the pistol itself, I kind of want to compare it to a real FN high power. So that's what we have here. And then we have the Tisas version. Of course, high powers had rolling changes made to them across the way. That could be a 40-minute video to get into all the differences. But you can see most things look pretty darn similar. The ambi safety, this one here was a more modern FN feature. This one here was how they came sort of originally. But you can see really the lines are pretty similar. The grips are interchangeable if you're using a standard safety like this. If you want to use an ambi safety, you need to make sure you get the right grips for those. But really, all around, they look pretty similar. You can see the differences out there on the muzzle. And one thing I'll tell you is that the Tisas has a really good fit and finish in that regard. Everything's pretty tight, machined pretty darn well. And you can see here as well, the right side of the pistol, everything, again, it's going to look pretty similar, which certainly is not a bad thing. With that out of the way, you do get two magazines with the pistol if you guys live in free states. It's going to come with Metgar mags, a 13 rounder and a 15 rounder, so you get one of each. And then the grips here on the pistol are okay. They have some checkering in there, the little Tisas logo. Mine have certainly been used, as you guys can see. One thing I kind of dislike about this pistol is the lack of checkering there on the front strap, but that's true to what, a lot of the early high powers were. So if you're looking for a true high power clone, that's correct. The same would be true here on the back strap. Not a lot of checkering. So it did slip around a little bit in my hands out there because I was shooting this in really hot temperatures every time I was out there, actually, and definitely moved a little bit more than I would like. Of course, adding some G10 grips or something like that, which is a simple fix to that, would help, but just wanted to point it out as it comes from the factory. Our safety here, again, older style safety from high power. It's not ambidextrous. It's very tough to engage, which is not unusual for the high powers. It's not super ergonomic, but if somebody's used to high powers, you're going to have an easy time deactivating it just a little bit. You kind of have to rotate your hand a little bit to re-engage it. Just something to keep in mind there. Again, we have our hammer here. This is sort of not a super early hammer, sort of a mid-series hammer in the production of the Browning high powers or FN high powers. As you guys can see here, if I get a very high grip on the pistol, as I want to do here, I get slide bite. It happens every time I shoot this pistol. I think a lot of people with bigger hands are going to be in the exact same boat with me on that one. it kind of just is what it is. Usually having bigger hands is beneficial for pistol shooting. This is one of the few times that it's not, because the high power has a relatively small frame, and although it does have double stack magazines, it's very easy for a lot of folks with smaller hands or medium-sized hands to control well and get a good grip on it. So for those of you guys with smaller or medium-sized hands, it's probably a bonus for you. For people like me with big meaty hands, it's going to kind of get some hammer bite, and I get slide bite as well with this. So from an ergonomics perspective, for me firing it, it's not great. From an ergonomics perspective, just holding it and pointing it, it's excellent, which all high powers have in common. Continuing to move forward, our magazine release is checkered, has good spring tension to it, no issues there at all. The slide lock there is very positive, very easy to use, as all high powers always have been. That's definitely one of the things they do really well. Moving forward, again, dust cover, standard high power stuff. They machine a lot of the slide out there. It lightens it up. This pistol here with the magazine unloaded comes in at 29 ounces there on my scale. You guys can see the Regent markings there on the side. Standard high power serrations there, which work well. The ejector, or rather extractor on this one, I'm just going to plug it now. There's a company that has a pretty extensive test of this actual pistol. They had some spring issues with this, I think at like 1,500 rounds on the extractor spring. Just something to keep in mind. Again, just quick Google search for the link that you see down here on the bottom of your screen should turn it up, but it's interesting info. I had no issues at all with mine, but just wanted to point that out. These sights that come on the pistol are very good for, your standard entry-level sights. They're much better than what came on the high powers of years past, as you guys can see here with these sights. So they're Novak cut in the rear and a dovetail up front, standard 3-dot stuff with a U-notch here in the rear, or rather a square notch on the rear. White dots up front. One thing to point out that I noticed after shooting this a bunch is that the front sight drifted, and I'm going to show you right now on camera. I can move it a little bit there with my finger, as you guys see. So that's kind of how it was after I put about 400 rounds through it. I noticed it because, of course, my point of impact started to shift, and literally can push it back over with my finger. I would imagine with some Loctite it would be perfectly fine, but it's just something to keep an eye on, something I noticed with my pistol. Of course, the rear sight has the threaded nut there, or a screw, to lock it down in place. That one didn't move at all during our testing, and was good to go in that regard. Disassembly of the pistol is pretty straightforward. We're going to drop our mag. It, generally speaking, will not drop free because of that magazine safety on there. We're going to let our hammer go down, or rather safety go down, push up here on our slide lock, inspect the pistol, make sure that it is clear, there's no rounds in there, and at this point we're going to pull back on the slide and push up there to lock it in the rear position in that little notch. What that's doing is taking the tension off of our slide lock lever here. We're going to push it from the right side of the pistol. Sometimes you kind of have to work it on new high powers. If you guys have really worn ones, you will not have to do that. We're going to drop the safety here. Make sure you have a good grasp on that slide, because it's going to come forward with some authority because it's under spring tension. At this point, we're going to pull forward and up on our guide rod assembly, just like so. It is steel there, as you guys can see, and pull up and back on the high power, which is one of the big changes from, of course, the 1911, which this gun sort of descended from. You guys can see there, the barrel is polished all the way around, has a very nicely polished feed ramp, and we had zero issues with any type of ammo out of this pistol. Take a look there in this slide. You guys can see there's some slight machine marks. Let me see if my camera will focus a little bit for you guys, but it's pretty good overall. I mean, you're kind of nitpicking if you're mad about that, in my opinion. Looking in there, you guys can see we have our magazine safety still, unfortunately, but that will be removed after this video. I wanted to review it as is, though, but to reassemble, we're just going to go in reverse order. And put our slide back on the frame there, and push back and lock it in place. Put our slide lock back in there, work it in. At this point, drop the slide. We're going to have to put our magazine back in, make sure it's in a safe direction, pull the trigger, and we're functioning, we're good to go. Lock it back, should not fire. That's it. The trigger on the high powers has been loved over the years and hated over the years. So when it first came out, compared to a lot of the other pistols out there in the marketplace, it was loved. It's about an 8-pound trigger, which we'll show you here in a second. It's designed to work single action only. So the pistol is designed to be carried, cocked, and locked. So you're going to take your safety off, and then you're going to start pulling the trigger. And there's definitely some grit and slop in here, which I do not like. And what that is the magazine safety grinding against the magazine, making sure that it's in there. It is what it is. And then you're going to pull back, and the brake is actually pretty crisp on this one. Brakes right around 8 pounds consistently. So for a high power, that's pretty good. I mean, this one here, this FN one, with all the rounds it has through it, is still braking around 9 to 10. So this one's a little bit lighter than that already out of the box, which is nice. But if you guys are used to, like, your race gun triggers or something like that, this one certainly isn't going to do it. But it's a very shootable pistol for sure, and the brake is predictable, which does help. Now, I will tell you the simplest and easiest way to improve the pistol with no cost, or the trigger rather with no cost, is just to remove that magazine disconnect safety. There's a lot of videos on YouTube on how to do it. If you don't need the magazine disconnect safety, which I would imagine most folks don't, I certainly don't, I do recommend doing that, and that will improve that trigger pull a good bit. So far with the Tisas, we got right around 600 rounds through it and a grand total of 0 malfunctions of any kind. We've only used the Metgar mags, which I do recommend for any type of high power clone. Now, for this particular high power here that I have here, this is one of my least reliable pistols. However, this has been shot to death. Lord knows how many thousands of rounds have been through this, and it definitely needs some parts upgrades for sure. Many folks have probably heard me say that on forums and stuff like that, that it's not a reliable gun. It's not that I'm saying that the high power is not a reliable gun. It's that that particular one is not a reliable gun. The high powers themselves are very reliable across the board. The ones I've primarily used have been both Canadian soldiers and British soldiers. They're pistols that I've used during training exercise and deployments with those folks. And even with those guns, which again are service pistols, we never had any issues with them. So the high powers are a very good pistol overall. Of course, the historical lineage of it is pretty awesome. A great John Browning design that really kind of lives on today. If you look at like the CZ75 type of pistols, they're sort of an improved high power, at least in my opinion. They have the fixes for a lot of the things that I may or may not like so much about this pistol. They're both going to have super ergonomic grips, very comfortable, again, for folks with small, medium hands. The one thing that the CZ has, of course, is it doesn't have that magazine disconnect safety, which you guys can remove, and a little bit more options for aftermarket parts, but the Brownings, of course, are going to have a lot as well, so that's not an issue here. Some shooting impressions from shooting this particular gun. Again, we talked about the slide bite and the hammer bite issues that I do have with big hands. Again, it's just kind of the nature of the beast. The trigger, the way it is, currently as it's set up, that combination with me not being able to get really high up on the gun, for me, it feels like I can't shoot this gun as fast as I should be able to. For instance, if I was to shoot, like a Glock 17 right next to this, even though the Glock would be lighter, I'd be able to get on targets faster and more rapidly with the Glock, just because of the way I can kind of bear down on it and really control and leverage that gun. Me personally, again, my hand size, I'm just not able to do that without getting cut up and all bloody with this particular pistol. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's just something to point out. So I think we covered most of the high points of the pistol, most of the features of it. If you guys have any questions about this, by all means post down below in the comment section. But a couple good mags. Seems to be a well-made pistol. It is made in Turkey. I should point that out, as I just saw that. I know it's a turnoff for a lot of folks. I really don't go down that rabbit hole here with the Turkish guns on the channel, but just something to point out for those of you guys who are very concerned about that. It is made in Turkey, but Turkish guns have had a pretty good reputation for build quality and running well here in the US as of late. So I don't think it's a bad thing per se, at least not as a performance metric anyway. Again, if you have questions, post down below in the comment section or over at my Facebook page. As always, that's generally speaking the best place to get in touch with me. Also the best place to find deals that I post and share with you guys. And if you guys like what you saw, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, and hope to see all of you in the next video.